Hello, everybody. I think we're going to get started. And first of all, thank you in advance for coming out on this incredibly rainy night. I'm so pleased to see you. I'm Deborah Davidson, director and founder of Catalyst Conversations. Happy to welcome you to a Catalyst Conversation. And want to thank the List Visual Arts Center for hosting and presenting this program with us. And I want to thank Paul Ha and Emily Garner especially for their continued generosity. Thanks also to the Cambridge Arts Council, our founding partner, our board, and all our volunteers who help us out, and to those of you who have donated to us recently. Catalyst Conversations was founded in 2012 to open a critical path for dialogue between the arts and sciences. We present intimate and provocative conversations between artists, scientists, and the public. We're interested in connecting the two through programs, educational outreach, and public events like this, which demonstrate the important conversation and synergy between art, science, and technology. This evening's topic is Why We Need Magic, with magician Zoe Reiches and Professor Graham Jones. And I'd just like to point out quickly that all those related interesting links on the announcement will be available on our website after this evening. We humans have a basic need for wonder, a way to understand what is mysterious, the uncanny. We need magic. The use of the word magic or magical is everywhere, even in scientific discussions. There is a continued interest in conjuring, tricks, sleight of hand, deception, tarot cards, reading the future. This evening, magician Zoe Reiches and MIT professor of anthropology Graham Jones will explore the continued fascination with magic as both practitioners of magic and those who think about it in all its many forms. In the epilogue of his book, Trade of the Tricks, Jones discusses the unique importance of imaginative play in human life and the richness of magic as a form of expertise. Together, they will investigate magic and some of its permutations. I'm looking forward to what will be a magical conversation. And just to tell you their bios, Graham Jones is an anthropologist who studies how human beings communicate about what they know and what they don't. He has published 2 books about magic, Trade of the Tricks, Inside the Magician's Craft, and Magic's Reason, an Anthropology of Analogy. He is currently working with computer scientist Arvind Satyaryan to apply insights from magic to a new generation of socially aware interfaces. Zoe Reiches started dabbling in the art of magic in childhood. Her early work was featured in the Netflix documentary Magic Camp. She prefers to create magic out of conversation and ordinary items, but doesn't mind a deck of cards. Zoe spends 1 week a year at Tannen's Magic Camp, where she shares her craft and aspiring magicians and continues her own learning. You can also find her in the greater Boston area doing magic for small groups of interesting people. So with that, Zoe, let's begin.
Hi. So good to see everyone. It's so good to see everyone. You are looking well. You're looking refreshed. And you're looking like you deserve a prize just for coming out today. Yes. In this weather, for sure. Let's see what I have for you. A little participation trophy. Good job. You did it. Thanks. Good job. Yay. So my name is Zoe. You may have heard the name before because you probably had a dog named Zoe or a neighbor who had a dog named Zoe. But I am a real-life human named Zoe. You can follow me on Instagram at Not Another Dog Named Zoe. Nope, just kidding. I am off social. I am trying to limit my screen time. You're right, I deserve a treat. I deserve a treat for that. Hashtag self-care. So, spoiler alert, I'm a millennial, which means I have a lot of obscure hobbies, like using locally sourced organic free-range yarn to crochet things. Investing in reusable water bottles. Environmentalism tastes so good. And frequenting estate sales. I like to go for the mystery grab bag option, which is where I got this little cutie. It's kind of like living history. Nope. It's kind of like history. You looked like you thought about giggling at that. And you know what? You deserve a prize. Thank you for participating. Thank you. You get your own participation trophy. Yes. Clap for him. Let's see what else is in our little mystery grab bag. Oh, okay. So this is not the Hermes scarf that I was hoping to find and resell on Poshmark, but you know what they say? Boop, boop. You can't put a price on fun. Oh. You look like you compost. Or like you've at least heard of composting. You deserve a little prize. Actually, I'm so sorry. This I can use for my crystal ball fortune teller class later. But my friend, you can have this biodegradable, turtle-safe, gluten-free bubble wand for your composting pile. Single-use plastic bag is not compostable. Those were too expensive. Hey, do you know why the Gen Z employee, what they said to their boss? You know, they said, I don't know either, they were on a mental health day. Oh, that's funny. I do appreciate your participation, though. You deserve a... Okay, we are out of little trophies, but there is a cute little plant in here. You know what? It's nice that something made it out alive. Here, you hold on to this. Thank you for participating. Congratulations. Oh, why'd the millennial cross the road? It was to find the Gen Z employee who was on the mental health day. I could see that you were trying, though, and for that, my friend, you too deserve a prize. What do we have here? I think this bag belonged to a grandma. Here you go, a little hard candy for you. How about you? Why'd the millennial cross the road? Same, great participation. I was thinking that it was to get to the Starbucks on the other side of the road. But excellent participation. You, my friend, deserve an ashtray. I do wonder how she died. Okay, pass that along. Thanks. All right. Who else? I feel like we have to get some folks in the back. Oh, why'd the millennial cross the road? Oh, so sorry. It was to close their step ring, the pedometer, you know. Okay, let's see what we have for you. For you, we have. Oh, okay, this is called a check. It is a piece of paper that people used to use to pay for things. Think like analog Venmo. This historic relic belonged to one Janice Etheridge. May she rest in peace. I suppose these are her belongings. And since she won't be needing it anymore, I guess you get her nest egg. So the way a check works is the pay to line. That gets your name. What is your name?
My name?
Yeah.
Mary.
Mary Sherman. Okay, and now a nest egg, I figure, is usually worth like between like 10 and 15K. It's your lucky day, right? But here's the thing. Once you adjust down for inflation for like Janice's era, and then you take the taxes off the top, you're still at a robust 37 cents. It's not all a loss. So then you put 37 cents right there. And Mary, the last thing that you do for a check is you actually sign right there on that line. And that is so that you can deposit it later. Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to give you your little nest egg. If you could actually just hold on to that and seal it up till you can deposit it later, that would be great. Okay. All right. Why'd the millennial cross the road? Yeah. Oh, so good. I was thinking for the vibes, but it's basically the same thing. Lunch and vibes. It's all a good time. And for you, my friend, she was a reader. This is the great American novel, Love Storm by Susan Johnson. Sweet, she probably read it to her grandkids. That's cute. Here you go. Here's your treat. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so I did get something really unusual at this estate sale, and Janice is running low on participation trophies, so maybe someone who already got a little prize wouldn't mind helping me out. Do you mind helping me out? Yeah, come on up with your little prize. Yeah, give a round of applause. It is not easy to stand up here. Trust me. Hi, what's your name? Sloat. I'm Zoe. It's so nice to meet you, Sloat. Thank you for helping me out. So the nice man at the estate sale told me that I could get something that would help us commune with the dead.
Okay.
So apparently all we need to do that is these cute little vintage chalkboards. Do you know anything about that?
Communing with the dead?
Yeah.
Sure.
Amazing! Okay, kick us off.
Zoe, it's your show.
Okay, I didn't prepare for this part. So I'll just make like a hocus pocus witchcrafty chant, and you can stand there for emotional support.
All right.
All right, here we go. Friend who is deceased and dead, please shareth with us some wisdom to spread. That was good. Yes. Did you feel it?
Not really.
No. Okay. I didn't either, and I'm hoping that who we are trying to commune with is our storytelling, chain-smoking Grandma Janice. But I feel like we maybe need more of her something, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if she left us anything. Oh. Perfect. You know they say scent is the strongest memory. And I don't know Janice, but that smells like Janice. Let's try again. Friend who is deceased and dead, please shareth with us some wisdom to spread. Ta-da! I don't read cursive. Do you?
Pay up, cash, or check.
Okay, so it seems like Janice is also experimenting with the gig economy. I'm a millennial, so I don't have cash, and I'm alive, so I don't have a check. Wait, where's the nest egg check? Who had the? Sloat, right? Mm-hmm. Sloat, do you mind grabbing the check?
From Mary?
From Mary. I'm gonna keep Janice comfortable because I don't want her to feel lonely or, I don't know, demonic. Okay, oh, perfect. You know what? You can take it out of the envelope. We're all gonna learn about checks and maybe cursive. You know, they stopped teaching it in school. It's just crazy. It's just crazy talk. Okay, so this is a check made out to one
Mary Sherman,
for,
37 cents.
and it's signed on the back? It has to be, or she won't take it. That's how it works. Have you paid a spirit before?
Never.
It's new territory for me too. Just go ahead and put the check right there, and we'll see what happens. Okay, here we go. Friend who is deceased and dead, we gave you a check. Can you drop on us a wisdom spec? Yeah. Here we go. This is what did it last time. Whoop. That was not part of the magic trick, but I think it really elevated the experience. Okay, let's see. Oh boy. Oh geez. Okay. The check is gone, but there is more cursive.
Money does grow on trees.
Money does grow on. So that's not the saying, right? It's money doesn't grow on trees?
But it says money does.
These boomers are so idealistic. They just, oh man. Okay, so I guess we work with what we have. We do not have a tree. We do have a plant. Do you see any money on that plant?
Nothing.
I don't see any money on that plant either. Well, this is awkward. Okay, so maybe this is a use for this really cute vintage tea towel that I saw in here earlier. Sloat, can you dump the plant out upon the tea towel? Oh my gosh. Do you see anything funny in the...
Oh, this is Mary's check. Mary Sherman.
Is it signed on the back?
Yes, it is.
And is it for 37 cents? Oh my gosh. Wow, well, this participation trophy has been through it. All right, Mary, you can pass that. Do you mind? Well, no, that would be silly. Do you mind passing that back to Mary? You deserve it. Thank you so much. The problem, Sloat, is of course that your participation trophy has been disemboweled. But you inspired me by the sacrifice you made, so I want to make a sacrifice too. You can have my participation trophy.
Thank you.
Thank you
Zoe.
so much, Sloan. You were wonderful. Have a seat. Well, as we all know from Pinterest, it's not about the destination. It's about the friends we made along the way. Thank you for going on my journey with me. My name is Zoe Reiches. Have a great rest of your evening. This is Graham. Please welcome Professor Graham. Is that what the kids call you? Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, am I mic'd? I'm mic'd, okay. So hi, everybody. Thank you, Zoe, for that fantastic performance. It's a tough act to follow. And unfortunately, I'm only going to be talking. And I've been on sabbatical, so I haven't been teaching at all. So I don't even know if I remember how to talk to a live audience, but I'll try. So Deborah kindly invited me to talk about why we need magic. And so I wanted to talk about, from my perspective as an anthropologist, the place of magic in human life, in human existence. But to do that, I need to clarify some things and kind of take apart the question and take apart the term. So as Deborah said, I studied, I did what anthropologists call an ethnography, participant observation fieldwork for about 18 months with sleight of hand and stage magicians in contemporary Paris. Is this sounding kind of, oh, is it because of that microphone? Does it sound weird? Okay, it sounds good? Okay. Yeah, so this is one of the magicians that I worked with, Jacques Delord, performing a rope magic trick. And a lot of my time in the field was spent, that's a young me. I don't know if my kids ever knew that I used to have black hair, no white hair. And that's me in a magic class studying to become a member of the French National Order of Prestidigitators, which I did at the end of the year. I passed the test and became a member. A lot of the time that I spent in the field was in after-hours magic clubs with magicians like this. I'm sure Zoe knows exactly what's going on in this scene. We've got two magicians teaching each other how to make a coin vanish at the tip of their fingers. And the thing I love about this image, this is the best picture I took in the field, is right behind them, there are two guys doing the same thing. And so if you multiply that by several hundred people, and just imagine a community of people who are held together by the circulation of secrets. That's the world that I was part of and that I was trying to understand. How do people make a community when that's based on withholding knowledge? They have to have ways to control the circulation of knowledge. And so a lot of what I wrote about in my first book, Trade of the Tricks, was about the way that magicians organize the flow of of magical secrets as intellectual property within the subculture of magic. Now, writing this book for me was a huge problem. It was hugely difficult for a reason that's very particular to my field. Anthropologists, so one of the most important topics, I don't know if there are any anthropologists here, if any of you have taken an anthropology class. If you have, you may know that one of the most important topics in the history of anthropology is magic. But the magic that anthropologists talk about is this kind of magic. This is a Mongolian shaman who I put up in honor of my colleague Mandohai Bulyandogur, who is an expert of Mongolian shamanism. And so usually when anthropologists talk about magic, they're referring to occult magic, ritual magic, the magic of shamans, sorcerers, witches, wizards, magic that's meant to harness natural forces and change the course of events, to make people fall in love with you or to make your enemies drop dead. So the question for me is, the question I had to wrestle with was, what is the relationship between this kind of magic and that kind of magic? And to think about that, I kind of went through the etymology of the word magic and traced it back both in English and in its European cognates to the early, oh, that was supposed to be animated. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't get the cool animations. I think you'll survive. So I traced it back to early modern Europe. And in early modern Europe, there were these incredible books called books of secrets. And books of secrets were these, not many people were literate and books were very rare. But books of secrets were these super valuable books where you would have just whatever secrets that the compiler could gather together, and many of them were magical spells and formulae. And that magic fell into three categories. There were what you would call demonic magic, magic for summoning demons, kind of what you might think of as anti-church or anti-Christian magic. There was natural magic, which is what we would today call science. And then there were instructions for the kind of magic that Zoe does, magic tricks, playful magic. And so you see, if you blow up the etymology of this word, that you have three different kinds of performance lumped together: ritual, experiment, and entertainment. Now, a lot of that gets lost in the anthropology of, oh, now it's animating? Why does it? Well, that's not very helpful. See, it would have been so cool if, okay. Oh, now it's gonna, okay, now I'm into the groove now. So when anthropologists traditionally think about magic, it's always in relationship with two other elements. One is science, and the other is religion. So what are these, in your mind? See, since I haven't been teaching, I want a little bit of audience participation. For you, what do these three things share in common?
Wonder.
Oh, wonder. Whoa, that's a good. Belief. Faith. Mystery. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so all of these things you're talking about, I think all of those terms have to do with a state of mind, a frame of mind, a way that the mind projects itself into the world and that the world projects itself into the mind. So the reason that anthropologists think about these things together is to try to understand how people in different cultures believe things. Like, if we all have the same cognitive apparatus, how come some people believe things that to us seems totally irrational? Why doesn't everybody believe the same thing? And so you get books like this, Magic, Science, and Religion, Magic, Science, and Religion and the Scope of Rationality. Now, for a long time, until the past 50 years or so, when anthropologists thought about magic, science, and religion, it was always in a linear order. First came magic, then came religion, and then came science. in a process that we call the disenchantment of the world. So there was some kind of imagination that early humans believed in magic, then later people more kind of shifted to religion, and finally, people became enlightened, and we all believed in science. What's wrong with that way of thinking?
What's the difference between religion and magic when you're first starting out, you're finding ways to explain the world? And science is the same way, but I don't see the distinction between magic and religion.
Right, so that's one fundamental problem, is it can be very hard to distinguish between magic and religion, or science and religion, or science and magic. Those boundaries are very porous and problematic. What else might seem problematic about this linear story? They're all still here. It's empirically false. It might appeal to us cognitively to think that we as a species are somehow becoming more rational, but empirically we're not, at least not as individuals. And so it becomes necessary to always think about magic and science and religion as dynamically interrelated, as states of being, states of relating to the world that we individually may orient to simultaneously, and that we as a society can orient to. So if we go back to this kind of constellation, and we're asking, that Deborah's posed the question to us, why do we need magic? The thing that I want to kind of add to the conversation is to kind of explode that question into several different questions. Why do we need ritual magic? Why do we need natural magic or scientific magic? And why do we need entertainment magic, like Zoe's magic? And I think, there are many answers to these questions, but I'll just toss out a few. There's been a huge kind of resurgence in recent decades in ritual magic, witchcraft, paganism, all throughout the Western world. And a part of it is because I think in our societies we've become so detached from the symbolic power of ritual and manipulating symbols that construct meaning in our lives, that this kind of ritual magic is a way for people individually to harness that and connect it with goals like healing or recovery or integration of trauma. I think when it comes to natural magic or science, one of the things I see, I'm sure there are scientists in the room, but I basically have devoted my career to teaching scientists and engineers. And I know from my students that when they're most engaged in what they're doing as science, it becomes almost indistinguishable from play. They approach it with a sense of enchantment. And when they talk about it, they try to convey that sense of enchantment to others. So I think that playful aspect of science, the wonder that it provokes, is something that we all need to keep science vibrant. And then the third thing, when it comes to entertainment magic, and we can talk about this with Zoe in a few minutes, one of the things that I found in studying with magicians is that, there was a time when, if you think of a magician like Houdini, you imagine a big stage show and there's giant apparatus and thousands of people in a theater. It's a grand spectacle. But what Zoe did was something very different. She was interacting with all of us, creating situations where people were learning each other's names and engaged in the drama of each other's experiences. And I think that magic today has become much more of a close-up kind of art that involves a lot of interaction with the magician and the spectator. And I think in a time when we're so distracted by, our phones and spectacles on our phones, having these moments where we get to be up close to a person with these extraordinary skills who's giving us a moment to be together as a group, I think there's something really special about that. And then the final thing I'll say, I'm almost done, is I might take this question personally. Why do we as why does my tribe, why does anthropology still need a concept of magic? And I think for me, one of the big reasons is that being at MIT, this is something I know very well, that technology is always, cutting edge technology is always on the cusp of magic. Arthur C. Clarke said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and you could flip that around and say any sufficiently advanced magic is indistinguishable from technology because it does what you want it to do. And so I think that magic, that sense of enchantment, that people who design devices like this build magic into them. They make them as objects of enchantment. I think that magic, even in the most kind of, and maybe especially in the most advanced industrial consumerist economy, really still helps us to understand how we relate to material culture, how we relate to technology, how capitalism organizes our lives. I think magic remains an incredibly powerful explanatory concept, and I look forward to talking with Deborah and Zoe about that now. Thanks.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just going to change glasses.
Do you need the micro? Do you have the microphone?
I have a microphone.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's begin this part. Zoe, I'm going to ask you the first question, and as moderator, I'm just here to kind of, help things go along. I'm happy that the conversation goes in any direction. But anyway, can you talk about your process of exploring and in manifesting ideas? How do you develop your magic act?
Sure. Oh, man. It is messy. It is so messy. I think one of the Graham showed those pictures of his time in France, kind of in a magic late night jam session. I was like, oh, my youth.
Yeah.
I have that picture. So I think the part of the challenge for me right now is that I've been doing magic, dabbling on and off in a variety of different ways since I was 10. So my process is literally thinking about it from like a childhood perspective and what felt magical then, and then trying to bring it into what feels magical now. And I'm at a point where I have to ask, we call them lay people who don't know magic. I have to ask lay people if something's magical or not, because it's become so blurred in my mind, I can't tell anymore. So part of my process is actually trying to distinguish what looks magical or seems magical from a layperson perspective versus from a magician perspective. And we talk a lot about magic for magicians. That is something I really don't dabble in. And that is like kind of the next level of elevated foolery, visual and otherwise. So the process goes from like, what would I have thought of as magic at 10, at 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, not to date myself, and is that magical because it was magical to little magician me, or is it magical because it's magic to the general population? So it's been messy.
Well, so anyway, to follow up, it's messy. And so how much, like the performance, the act you did for us this evening, was that like 3 months of preparation, 5, 10?
Well, I thank you all for sitting through that. That was its debut.
Oh, okay.
So thanks. I'm open to notes and feedback. So that process started in early July, and we're in December, and that was like a weekly jam session with a couple different local and not local magicians, Zoom and otherwise. And it started as a completely different act. So that was probably 5 months. And it'll continue to evolve, hopefully, and change and morph and grow with me, I think.
Here's another kind of question thought, which is, for artists and scientists in all fields, the process of making something visible or understood is inherent. And I think this plays into the idea of conjuring what is not visible. I mean, you're always kind of playing with that. You see it, you don't see it, now you see, So it's true for many fields, dance, theater, visual arts, writing, music. and in your case, magic. So can you talk how that functions for you, that idea of making something visible?
Yeah, you know, I have 2 little kids, and I have been like tracking their object permanence and trying to figure out at what age magic is magical to them. And the oldest one is 5, and I swear to you, because of technology, it is like things are not magical to her that are actually magical. Or flip side, that's not true. Everything is magical. It's more that. She lives in a magical world. And so as far as conjuring and vanishing, and there's like similar principles in magic, from maybe like a lost to found item that shows up somewhere that it shouldn't, a changed object that starts one way and goes the other way. All of those are the principles. There's probably like 5 buckets, conjuring being one of them, that magic falls into. Mentalism, prediction, I know what you're thinking before you're thinking it. Mentalism, I can read your mind. So those are all things that when I start to think about an effect, you want to figure out what bucket that effect is falling into, and then each bucket has a principle of how you introduce it and where it ends up, and that should follow sort of like a magical thought process or principle. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, you might be
Can
better
I
at
ask
that.
a follow-up question
Sure.
to that? I'm curious about, well, a couple things. I mean, just as a parenthesis on magic for kids, which is really, because of the kind of cognitive development, a genre unto itself.
totally.
So often involves the magician not seeing things that the kids can see, so that the kids can understand it as a situation that doesn't involve object permanence.
Right, yeah.
Or something like that. So it's interesting how you have to adapt to the what you know about how people think or reason at different levels. But the thing I wanted to ask you about was about routining and constructing a routine, and also a persona with that, because you had such a strong persona. And in the brief chat we had before, you said that you were changing your relationship to magic. And so I'm wondering what in that show represented a change in your relationship to magic.
That's a good question. I would say historically, the acts I've done in a setting like this, so that's different than when you go to a brewery or restaurant, a magician walks up to you and is like, hey, do you want to see a card trick? But this kind of like, we call it parlor magic. Like, this is what you would see if you're out at, it's an outdated term, who goes to a parlor? But this setting, I don't think I've ever done one not in, so that's not totally true. I was gonna say I don't think I've ever done one as me, and this really was just like objectively a millennial and all. I just embody what it means to be born in the late 80s, early 90s. And so I enjoyed that. But previously I've been like, I was like a kid on her first day of high school when I was in high school. So it's not that I haven't ever been me, but I've also dabbled in sort of like other characters. I like character acts, right? Which a magician recently brought to my attention is very different than a themed act, which is really more of a theatrical differentiation than a magic differentiation. But it was an interesting way to think about it, because both of these worlds are scripted and routined and planned out. But one of them is meant to bring the magician along with the audience, and the other is meant to show magic to the audience without participating. And I found that delineation actually to be really helpful in thinking about character development and which of those I wanted to be and do. Like, I want to be amazed with the magic at the same time you're amazed with the magic, right? But that's very different than the way other people may experience or do or perform magic if they're in a character who they're here to fool you and they know that they're fooling you, and that's also magic. So I lost the question there.
That's okay. Yeah, I do you know the German magician Topaz has this typology of different personae that the magician can adopt. One is the killer, who overwhelms people with the power of the trick.
That's interesting.
The other is the victim, which is usually comedy magic. Like, the magic is happening to you and it's going out of control, and you're totally incompetent clown. And the third is the witness. It's like the scene of a crime, the killer, the victim, the witness, where you're experiencing the magic along with the audience. And I feel like you're very much a witness in that
I
sense.
think trying to be, which is not where I've always been. But I feel like that's the most enjoyable way to watch magic at this point. Could be wrong. We're thinking hippity hop rabbits, right? Is that
Yeah, totally.
So Graham, maybe pivoting to you, and you did address it a little bit in your talk, but why does magic matter now? Could you just maybe talk more about that? I mean, I think it has to do with our the technology question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as I was saying, it's really hard to answer that question in general because it's what kind of magic and to whom does it matter? One thing I can say that might be interesting for some context is that when I first started working on magic, it was about 2001, and there were virtually no academics that studied it. It was one of my committee members on my dissertation committee said, "Your project is terrible and you're ruining your career." And the project may have been terrible, but it didn't ruin my career, at the very least. But I think that one thing that's changed in the intervening 20 years is now there's a huge network of scholars devoted to the study of magic, like Zoe's magic. And most of them are in psychology and cognitive science. Because it turns out that understanding how magic tricks fool audiences is a great way to gain insight into how the human brain and human perceptual capacities work. So I think one way that I might say that magic matters now in a way that it maybe never did before is that scientists are taking it seriously I mean, history is peppered with individual people who took it seriously in some way, but now there are actually conferences on the science of magic.
At the moment, there's 2 exhibitions
Yes.
devoted to magic in Massachusetts at the Peabody Essex Museum. I forget the title, but it's Conjuring something in spiritualism. And then there's a show at Mass MoCA
Yes.
called Like Magic. I think it's both of them are still on, and just it's like this just interesting coincidence or not.
No, I don't think so. Could I comment on the...
Please.
I haven't seen the Peabody Essex show yet, but I did see the Mass MoCA show. My kids saw it with me. Has anybody seen that show? Oh, wow! There's some real magic. I don't want to say geeks, but...
People.
Yeah, all right. So the thing about that show, I mean, it has built within it a kind of topicality because it's basically exploring how marginalized people and community use magic as a form of resistance or empowerment. And there's one piece in that show that I think made me appreciate the power of magic more than anything I've ever seen. Which, for those of you who saw, I'm curious to talk to those of you who saw it to see if it had that same effect on you. It's these giant photographs by an artist named Rose Salon of objects that were stolen from the Pompeii archaeological site that people, they picked up a handful of pebbles or a nail or whatever, and then they went back to wherever they were from. And then years later, people mail these things back with these little handwritten confessions. I took this from Pompeii in 1972. I was stupid. I'm suffering from maledictions, and I want you to put it back where it belongs. And it's a 4-kilometer square park, so they can't do it. So they just put all this stuff in a closet. But the artists went and took everything out and made these giant photographs of it. And you see it, and you realize, that these people are sitting in their houses and they feel there's this power with me here. What is it? It's the pebbles. I got to get rid of them. And so you really sense the power of magic working on people's minds, how inescapable it is. I love that piece of art.
So funny, I would just call that Jewish guilt, but it's probably magic too.
Or, I was just thinking about other situations where an object has meaning to you, and you, it's irreplaceable. That
Like the
object.
participation trophies.
Exactly.
the most sentimental,
Yeah.
For keeps.
Yeah. Well, just to continue a little bit on what you were saying, Graham, is, now scientists and academics are looking at magic and understanding that the human brain is limited in what it can see and perceive, and the magician plays on that aspect, like, sleight of hand or whatever, or the card, and it's because we can't take in what we're seeing all at once. So I think you must.
Yeah, there's a couple
Use
little
that.
principles for sure. Like, I'm not spreading any secrets here, but part of misdirection is big action covers the little action, right? And that's, it's in so many sleight of hand moves where there's the little thing happening over here and the big thing happening
Right,
over
right.
here. And so that concept is, I think we must have known for how long that
Right.
people can't pay attention to two things at once.
Yeah.
And so when there's like competing priorities, you're going to pay attention to the thing that's
Right.
louder and bigger. But
Right.
like as now as an adult who's been doing this for so long, I swear my brain is broken and I focus on the other thing when
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to. Does this happen to you?
Yes. I
You
mean,
focus on the wrong thing.
well, I loved what you said before about needing to see spectators respond to it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that one thing that happens when you're doing magic a lot or just around it all the time, magicians distinguish between the technique and the effect, the way that you do things, and then what you want people to see or understand happening. And when you're a magician watching another magician, you see the technique. You
right.
see it as a sequence of, okay, first you do this, and other people are going to think this, but that doesn't. And
Yeah.
it's very hard to turn off, but the experience of seeing so you can almost become jaded.
Oh, I'm totally jaded.
Totally
There's
jaded,
like
but-
basic tricks that you've all seen,
Yeah.
like one in the hand, two in the pocket, and I can't. Linking rings, you guys know these. It's like constant, think two rings linked together. I can't watch that trick. All I can see is the technique.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable. There's zero magic quality to me.
But can you do it?
Not
I
well.
mean, do
Not
it.
well.
No.
No, I'm like, but the magic is gone. The magic is gone because, and some tricks I know how they're. A lot of tricks I know how they're done. Not all tricks, but I can still really connect to
Yeah.
the magic, and I'm like, oh, even
Yeah.
the reaction that you get from a non-magical person is so strong that it's worth it
Yeah.
to enjoy it. But it becomes very hard to enjoy magic when you're focused on just like the technical aspects of it rather than the experience. But that said, my kind of like the way I do magic is I'm kind of like, I like to take basic magic, but like, and try to make it enjoyable for non-magical people.
Right.
That's not, most of the magicians I hang out with do magic for magicians. And it's like a technique battle. But have you seen,
Yeah.
and when I say technique, I'm telling you it is a millimeter of a difference of where you're putting a finger. Like that technical of like, no, don't hold the coin here, hold the coin here, right? That's really like the conversations that happen. And that's great and important and critical.
Yeah.
Like those are really, really important nuances. And for me, like, yes, the technical side is important, but I also really enjoy making something maybe kind of simple seem really magical. That has value for the way I do magic for whatever reason.
And it's interesting how the internet has
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
affected that.
Well, and you said, too, that sort of like academically there's been this explosion in magic, but sort of just, I think, across the board because, like, for instance, when COVID hit,
Yeah.
there was just an explosion of magic accessible on YouTube, which has pros and cons. All of a sudden there's like the secret code is gone. You don't have to kind of like find a magic store and go to a late night jam session, which honestly good, because magic has an equity issue.
Yes.
Like there has been
I wanted to talk about this.
not equitable access to magic for many, many people forever. So the internet has definitely at least acknowledged the gap, if not started to close it. But is there like infinitely more what I would call bad magic? Yes, because it's like camera tricks. Like all of a sudden what you're seeing is magicians who can't perform for people, they can perform for a camera at that angle only. I mean, I think it opened a can of worms that was going to be open, but that's an interesting interplay of technology and magic of is it helping, is it hurting, is it both? But we had, I spend this like real nerdy week at a magic camp every summer. It's really just excellent magic. And I'm like, honestly honored every year that they asked me to come back. It's like such a great week. And the years that summer camps couldn't happen because of COVID, we hosted online. And the first year it was like tuition free, and it was like 1,000 online teenage magicians out in breakout rooms on Zoom, learning technical magic over Zoom from all over the world. I mean, it was incredible. It was incredible. And then the next year they did it virtual. They put tuition on it, and we're down to like 100 kids, and it's no longer accessible. And
Could you say something about what magic? I mean, when we talk about why we need magic, what magic does for a kid?
Well, let's talk about who's into magic as a kid. Isn't it? This is probably changing, but I think often kids who are into magic may be drawn to magic because it feels like theater. They tend to be theatrical kids. They might be kids who, this is just sweeping generalizations, we don't allow sports at magic camp, and that's just fact. And like it's true. So that's who comes to magic camp. And whether that is coincidence or not, you can draw your own conclusion. But they may be kids who are not particularly interested in some of the things that kids maybe think are more popular or cooler. Like I was not a cool kid, and I was the cool kid at magic camp. Like that was a low standard of cool. And so for whatever reason, maybe that's who's into magic. And like my generation grew up with Harry Potter too, and so it was kind of like kids who were into Harry Potter and kids who were into this kind of like, do you want to see a card trick? And it's changing, I think. Like I think magic is actually becoming a little cool now. We still don't allow sports, but I think we get theatrical kids. Like we get kids who are like classically trained in theater, who come with this like great stage presence and training and need to learn the technique and the history and the effects, and then they can put together a pretty awesome set. So that's who's into magic. It's kids who maybe are seeking. What we say too about kind of like teaching magic is like you're not just teaching magic, you're teaching life skills. I'm like, sure, that's like a thing that you go to summer camp for, a thing you go to like Society of Young Magicians. That is a thing, but it is true, right? There's like if you're going to show somebody a trick, you also have to learn all of the things that you need to do to be able to like have a trick received by somebody. Like you have to learn those people skills. Yeah. And it's great training. And for whatever reason, I think a lot of kids who are into magic come without those skills at first. Yeah. And it's a really wonderful opportunity for them to learn those skills.
Well, that's what's interesting about a magic trick is you buy it or you learn it or someone teaches it to you, and it's like a little recipe for an interaction.
It can get you out there. It can get you to make friends on the playground. It's cool.
And it's an interaction that's based on showing that you possess something that you're not going to give away.
In that way, it makes you cool. It really does. And I think maybe people who are seeking that are seeking that. So, they might not be knowing that they're seeking it, but like when I think I was getting into magic, like my parents were moving a bunch. We like moved states several times. It was like New York and Connecticut and Tennessee, Minnesota. And like that's when I started learning magic. I was like in a different school every year. And I was that kid who was like, you want to see this scarf vanish on the playground, And so it really was kind of like a good social skill thing. But also like as an adult, I met my husband because he like was like, were you that chick who did a magic trick? I was like, I guess, I don't remember you, but I guess you remember me, and I was probably just like messing around at a party with a deck of cards. So it is a thing that like there is something that seems powerful and cool to the people who don't possess that.
I want to interject here. We have a little bit of time for a couple of questions from you all. And I think I'm going to do this.
Here I go.
Hi, good evening. First things first, this was really great. It was fascinating. Thank you so much for that. And also for the lovely souvenir that I got. Thank you so much for that.
It'll be worth a lot. I'll sign it later.
Yeah. So, pardon my naivete, but the talk I know is titled as Why Do We Need Magic? I was just wondering, is it possible that we could have had a similar discussion with the title, Why Do We Need Illusions? So my question is it just a matter of semantics, or is there something more than that? By calling it illusions, do we drown down on the gravitas of the situation, or is there more than what looks to the eye? Thank you. Either of you or both of you.
Did you watch Arrested Development?
I'm not seeing that.
So in the magic world, we call all of these effects. So they're not tricks, and the only thing reserved for illusions they're stage illusions, sawing somebody in half, a sword basket, a subchunk, which metamorphosis, these words are not explaining the thing, where someone switches places when a big curtain comes up because there was someone else trapped in a box and they switch. Those are illusions, those big things that get rolled on stage and David Copperfield vanished the Statue of Liberty and an island. So for in my world, they're technically different. And for whatever reason, the word, like the trick aspect has gotten kind of like not a negative connotation, like a cheap connotation, like you would buy a trick at like a dollar store. So we call everything effects, and I think like, that's the sort of magic answer. I think Graham probably has a more anthropological answer.
I have a more anthropological answer, but I do think that the term illusion, it's an interesting thought experiment, because the term illusion kind of creates a conversation with philosophical traditions from Plato to Marx to Freud about all of the illusions that people willingly take upon themselves to shield themselves from a reality that they're too weak to stomach. And I do think that a part of what is interesting about magic, Zoe is kind of magic. Effects. Which I call, in my book, I call it illusionism, because I need to differentiate it from
Shamanistic.
Exactly. Or entertainment magic. But a part of what's interesting about that tradition of performing illusions is that it reminds us of the fallibility of our cognitive and perceptual faculties. And I think that our ability to take pleasure in the experience of the limitations of what we can know and what we can understand in a world where there's so much hubris. It's really actually beautiful to celebrate in the acknowledgement of not knowing or not understanding or not seeing the truth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was the fallibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a question. In the bubble diagram you had up there, there was the category demonic.
Yes.
And when I think of demonic magic now, I think of the last election, voodoo economics, all these sorts of things there. These things have actual power in the world. And I was just wondering, in your mind, does magic sort of operate? I mean, people are making stuff up or making things appear to be what they're not to get power, which is part of what I think of as demonic. Does that fit within your magical, anthropological perception of the world?
That's an interesting question. I just need to talk into it a little bit, because I think when you think of a medieval book of secrets, a part of what's really interesting in those books is that you literally have a spell to summon. There's like a spell. I don't know if any of you have seen Dr. Faustus, the Marlowe play. It's crazy. He gets a spell to summon a demon, and what does he have the demon do? Make a pretend banquet to trick his enemies into thinking that they're eating a meal, but it's not. It's such a weird thing. And so the way that kind of these different forms of magic jumble together, I think in that historical context is really interesting. I do think that there is something to be said for kind of testing how far magic as an explanatory concept can take us. And so one of the scholars that I pointed to, who's really like the first real legitimate anthropologist of magic, was Bronislaw Malinowski. He has this book called Coral Gardens and Their Magic, and in the end, there's this incredible essay called Magic Today, where he talks about, what is magic? It's about using words to get people to behave in ways that they otherwise wouldn't behave. And so he said, well, where do we see that today? We see it in advertising. We see it at political rallies where people are using loudspeakers. He says, our society is suffused with these kinds of manipulative magics, no different from any other society. And so I do think that there is a precedent for thinking that way about the way politics operates to manipulate in a manipulative fashion. It's just a question, I think, for me, when you deploy a concept like that, what are you revealing and what are you concealing? Because if you call it magic, that's almost as if to say, it calls attention to a certain nefariousness of purpose and intent, but it also hides the very deliberate technical things that people are doing to bring about that effect. So I'm always very careful with what I call magical for that reason.
I think we have time for a couple more
I'm sorry I'm being
questions.
so
I
long-winded.
like that. No, it was great. That was fake news of magic. I would do
Graham,
the same thing.
Graham, right here. In your study of anthropology, I'm curious if you put aside the magic of deception or illusion and the magic of belief, and you put aside science, what about a realm maybe outside of science for areas that we just don't know? And you use the word hubris. So an area where something may exist that's not necessarily defined.
Yes.
Magic seems to cover a lot of ground, but can you talk about that realm and maybe the history of that realm where it actually might exist to some degree, like intuition or other things?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I will give it a big answer because I don't want to talk too much, but I think to kind of ground it in history, and Zoe, I'm sure, knows about this too, magicians have been very intimately involved over the past 120, 130 years with what we might call paranormal investigations. And so they've been a lot of back and forth between kind of, enthusiasts of the paranormal, scientists studying things that are on the threshold of what is understood or what is perceptible, and then magicians who often are on the side of skeptics trying to debunk the paranormal. Sometimes those conversations are really kind of fruitful and generative, and sometimes they're hostile and acrimonious. But I think there's been a long history of what I might call magical skirmishes along the border or the boundary between the scientific and the paranormal.
I think we have time for one more question.
Graham, I'm just curious to know if you knew where Zoe's trick was going, if you knew how she did it, like what was your experience watching it?
That's an interesting question. I did not know where it was going. I mean, I did not know. Well,
But it's a principle you probably saw coming.
I gradually understood.
You might not know the specifics, but you
I
probably
didn't know
knew
the
the
specifics.
knew the. I suspect you probably knew the arch.
At some point, I realized the arc of what was going to happen. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that in a way that's interesting. I mean, a part of that is why I asked Zoe about routining, because I think what's interesting is you can pick up a magic book, and there's just a list of trick after trick after trick, and you can go to a magic shop and you can buy all this stuff. But what's interesting is how an individual magician takes those ingredients and bakes them together into a meal or a feast, so to speak. And so what was more interesting to me and what I pay attention to is kind of how Zoe creatively brought these elements together to create a theatrical situation for us.
I was just thinking of the first time I ever performed for anyone in like a parlor setting. I just like laid like 20 tricks on a close-up mat. And I was like, and this is my first trick, and this is my second trick, and this is my, and then I was really confused about why I like didn't make finals.
I think that's the reason why so many kids start out with the magic set.
It's a great way to start.
It's a great way to start, but they also lose interest because it's actually not that interesting for people to see. First there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. I also know how to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So this has been a fantastic performance and conversation. I want to thank you both so much.
Thank you for having
Really
us.
terrific. I also want to thank my friend Ellen Band for the magical mixtape that we heard as people were coming in. And also thank you to you audience for coming out in the rain and for being a terrific audience.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you so much. And let's see. If you haven't donated yet to us, Catalyst Conversations, it would be great. Towards the end of the year, we do a lot of work with wonderful volunteers, and we need funds to keep it going. So I wish everyone a peaceful and happy holiday season. So thank you very much.